What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. And this one, I'm going to go over a couple players at each position that I think you should be looking out on waivers ahead of week 11. We've been through 10 weeks of fantasy football. There have been a lot of ups and downs, and we're sort of starting to get into that home stretch. We're really starting to just sort of position your fantasy rosters for the playoffs. A lot of you guys are still probably battling for playoff spots. A lot of you guys maybe have already basically locked those up, and you're just trying to make sure you've got the best team possible for those playoff weeks. So it's important to make sure that we keep making sure our teams get better and better each week. Very rare that one team ends up as the best team in their league throughout the whole course of the season and doesn't have to make moves to make their team better. It's very often that the team that's the most active and keeps making sure their team improves each week ends up being the one that wins the league. So that's what we're here to do. I'm here to help you guys win as many fantasy championships as possible. It's a lot of fun. Waivers are super fun for me. I love these videos as well. Try to touch on guys that are in some deeper leagues as well as some more shallow leagues, just so that I sort of touch on anybody. But if there's anybody I didn't mention that you think should be mentioned, please feel free to ask me in the comments. I'm more than happy to help you guys with any decisions you have as well. So yeah, before I do get into the video, I just want to take a minute to thank everybody for all the support. It's been really awesome seeing how well the channel's done so far this season, and just want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. It really helps me know that I'm doing a really good job and I've had a lot of fun with it. If this is your first time on the channel, please just do take a minute to like the video if you get anything out of it. You can subscribe to the channel. You can click on the notification bell so you get notifications when more videos come out. I do 3 videos every single week and just love interacting with you guys. So yeah, with that, let's get into the quarterbacks. Starting us off with the quarterback position here, my number one ad was going to be, unfortunately, Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of you guys are going to be really kind of maybe feel a little squeamish doing it. I don't love it, but in a lot of your guys' leagues, he's probably still on waivers, and he's shown an ability to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback in the past. I know it's not someone that you're really hoping to play on your fantasy team or trust right out of the gate, but in more competitive leagues, I think it's up to you to decide if it's worth playing him. I don't want to make that moral decision for you guys, but he's going to be back in week 13. He gets a pretty juicy matchup against the Texans, so he'll have probably 2 weeks to show you whether or not he's worth starting before your playoff stretch. I don't think he's going to be a guy that you want to start as soon as he comes back because we saw him look really awful in the preseason. He's just now practicing this week, so who really knows how well he's going to come out of the break here? But I mean, he's got a history. There's enough talent on this offense that he could be a really good fantasy option. So those of you that are struggling at quarterback and maybe missed out on Justin Fields, I think he could be your last shot to get a nice difference maker going into the playoffs. So he's worth taking a look at. Next ad here is going to be Russell Wilson. I know it's really gross. He's been absolutely awful. It's been really sad. I was really high on him coming into this season, but he does get a matchup with the Raiders this week, which is the only team he's actually had a really quality fantasy game against so far this season. The Raiders are just one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I think even this Broncos offense is going to be able to score. We did see Jerry Jeudy go down with an injury, but it sounds like he got some promising news today, so we'll keep you updated there. But it sounds like Judy's maybe only going to miss a week here, so Russ could have a decent stretch coming down the stretch here. He's got a lot of really favorable matchups for the quarterback position. He gets the Raiders this week, the Panthers next week, and then he's going to find himself in a lot of those divisional games like the Chiefs that are going to be more high scoring. So Russ could have a bit of a better second half of the stretch. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Nathaniel Hackett get fired here at some point, and I mean, things can only get better for this team. So, I mean, maybe he's a decent streamer this week, and maybe going forward things turn around. But if you just want to use him this week, I don't mind that. And then last, I've got Daniel Jones here. He's been pretty safe in fantasy. He gives you a decent rushing floor, and this offense pretty much runs through him on the ground, a couple of deep plays every now and then Saquon Barkley. But they get to play the Lions this week. It's going to be a really easy defense to take advantage of, and Daniel Jones is a pretty safe option if you need him, so he's worth streaming this week as well. Moving on to the running back position, my number one ad this week would be Jeff Wilson. He's clearly the number one running back in Miami. He's just looked really great. I think he had 17 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown this last week. He caught a couple passes as well. And I mean, this is just a really good offense that you want pieces of, and he's just a super valuable option. I doubt he's still on your waiver wire, but if he is, he'd be the number one ad for sure. After that, Rachaad White, he seemed to sort of take over for Leonard Fournette this last week. He did get the first carry, and we did see Leonard Fournette leave the game with a bit of an injury. The Bucs do head into their bye week this week, so it's possible that Leonard Fournette makes it back for week 12. But Rachaad White honestly looks better than Leonard Fournette. He's a really talented player. He's a great pass catcher as well, and Leonard Fournette's banged up. So there's certainly a possibility that we see Rachaad White be the workhorse in this Tampa Bay offense down the stretch. And if that's the case, Rachaad White really could shape up to be a league winner for a lot of you guys. Next guy is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. He's just clearly solidified his role as the first and second down running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. Jerick McKinnon is still getting most of the passing down work, so I do prefer Pacheco in standard and half PPR scoring. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been completely phased out of the offense. I think he had 4 snaps this last week. It did suck to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire get in there on the goal line for one of those snaps. So we are still a little bit worried about Isaiah Pacheco maybe not getting all that goal line work, but he sort of profiles to get 15 to 20 touches a game going forward, it seems. And if that's the case, he's going to be a super valuable fantasy asset. Next guys I want to talk about are going to be Gus Edwards or Kenyon Drake. I think they're both worth adding. I would prioritize Gus Edwards, but Kenyon Drake has looked really good over the last few weeks, and we don't know for sure when Gus Edwards is going to be back. I would assume Gus Edwards plays this week, but if he doesn't, Kenyon Drake's almost a must start with how well he's been playing and just the workload he's been getting. And if Gus Edwards is back, I think you can play him as well. He's going to be a nice touchdown option. Next, I got Jalen Warren here. There was a lot of hype about him maybe getting more work heading into this last week. That didn't really come true, but he still looked pretty good. He got 9 carries. He got more involvement through the receiving game. And, I mean, we're still just a Najee injury away from him being a workhorse running back for the Steelers. He looks good. This offense isn't great, but any running back that's going to get touches and looks decent is certainly worth adding. And, I mean, he's getting enough touches that you could flex him if you had to, and then if something were to happen to Najee, he'd be a really good add. Jerick McKinnon is another guy I like. It seems like the Chiefs have really just made it a 2 running back committee between Pacheco and McKinnon, so I think they're both pretty much worth flexing every single week right now. McKinnon's going to get the passing down work, so you like him more in PPR scoring, and then Pacheco would be the guy you want in standard. And then Kyren Williams is another guy I think you can add. He didn't do a whole lot in his first week, but this Rams offense didn't have Stafford. They lost Kupp during the game, so it's hard to take a whole lot from this game, but Kyren Williams was on the field. He looked okay, and there's a possibility of him being more involved going forward, so he could be worth adding as well. Moving on to wide receiver here, my number one ad is going to be Kadarius Toney. He just looked really good for the Kansas City Chiefs this last week. He's been a player that I've been pretty high on if he can just stay healthy, and it seems like he is healthy now, and he's going to be an integral part of this Chiefs offense. We also saw Juju leave the game with a really scary head injury. We know that Hardman didn't play this last week, and MVS was on and off the field as well. So there's a real opportunity for Kadarius Toney to slot in as the number one wide receiver in this offense, and obviously that's just a super valuable role. So Toney would be a must-add for me if he's available. Rondale Moore is another guy I'm pretty high on. He's been a top 20 wide receiver the last 3 weeks. He's an integral part of this offense, and they just lost Zach Ertz, so it would be reasonable to assume that even more targets are going to go his way. He's a good player. He's not going to have a ton of upside just because of the kind of targets he gets, but he'd be a guy that you can start every single week. Donovan Peoples-Jones would be another guy I'd like to add. He just quietly had like a really great last month, and he just hasn't put together a touchdown so far this season, so he hasn't really had that spiked week, but he'd be a guy that I'm comfortable flexing going forward. And as I touched on earlier, Deshaun Watson will be back this next week. It's possible that he elevates this Browns offense, so Peoples-Jones could be worth adding as well. Christian Watson finally had a breakout game. He had 4 receptions and 3 touchdowns for like 120 yards this last week. It's tough to really know how sustainable that is. Obviously, he's not going to have 3 touchdowns every single week, but he is a deep threat. He seems to be really capable of getting open. He did have 2 drops again this week, so he's dealing with that, but he's a vertical player. He gets open. Rodgers maybe gets better going down the stretch here. So Christian Watson would be worth a flyer, especially if you don't need a player to start right now. Paris Campbell's another guy I really like. He just clearly seems to be one of Matt Ryan's favorite targets, if not his favorite target. If Matt Ryan's on the field, he's getting 7 to 10 targets every single week. Short area targets, who's catching a lot of them, and he's a good player after the catch as well. So Paris Campbell will be a nice, safe flex play the rest of the year if you need him as long as Matt Ryan's playing. Odell is another guy I'd be looking to add. I wouldn't be shocked to see him sign with a team this week and then be on the field in a week or 2 here. So Odell, I mean, he's going to sign with a good team that's going to have a good quarterback, and maybe he'll really find himself being useful down the stretch here. Treylon Burks is another speculative ad here. He finally got his way back onto the field with the Titans this last week. They played a really tough Broncos defense this week, so it's hard to know exactly how involved he was going to be. It's hard. We wouldn't have expected much out of him, but he was involved. He looked okay, and we're going to see him face a slightly more vulnerable defense than the Packers this week, and then he'll have 10 days to get more integrated after that. So I think Treylon Burks is a guy you could hold and stash and see what happens. Zay Jones is another guy. He's just the clear number 2 wide receiver for the Jaguars. He's gotten plenty of targets. It finally kind of caught up this week. He got 10 targets for 8 catches, 68 yards. It's really usable, especially in PPR formats, and any week he scores is going to be a really nice start. Van Jefferson and Ben Skoranek are guys worth adding as well. We saw Cooper Kupp leave the game with an injury. I don't know how bad it's going to be, but it doesn't sound like it's good. It's a high ankle sprain. They're really worried about it. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see Cooper Kupp the rest of this year. And that means there's certainly an opportunity here behind Allen Robinson. Even Allen Robinson himself hasn't looked great. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities involved in this Rams offense. Van Jefferson's been a vertical threat for them. He looked okay this last week, although he didn't really get on the field much until after Kupp was out. And then Ben Skoranek, he's been a guy that's just been all over the field for them. He's sort of that short and intermediate target for them as well. So Skoranek could be a sneaky flex play as well down the stretch. Matt Collins is another guy I'm interested in. We know that Waller and Renfro are going to be on the IR for the next month for the Raiders. So that pretty much opens up Matt Collins as the clear number 2 wide receiver for this Raiders team. I know the Raiders are a bit of a dumpster fire right now, but their defense is bad. They're passing the ball plenty. So Matt Collins does have some upside if you need him. And then Jahan Dotson, he finally played again this last Monday. He didn't do a whole lot, but I mean, he's a talented player. He looked really good to start the year, so he'd be a guy worth adding and holding on to see what happens there. And lastly, we've got the tight ends here. My number one ad would be Cole Kmet. He's just looked really great. He's got like 5 touchdowns over the last 3 games. He's been the tight end one over the last 3 weeks, which is shocking, but he looks good. This Bears offense looks really good. He's clearly a guy they're looking to go to in the red zone. So Cole Kmet's got upside, and I mean, he might be a guy that finishes the year as a top 5 tight end just because of how hot he's been lately. So he'd be worth adding if he's available. Foster Moreau's another guy I like. He's just a decent player for this Raiders team. We know Darren Waller is going to be out for the next month, so as long as he's out, Derek Carr is going to look to get him the ball. He's always got a threat to score, so Foster Moreau could be a nice streamer for you until Waller's back. Then Greg Dulcich, I know he had a bit of a dud week this last week, but with Judy being out potentially, that sort of makes Dulcich the number 2 target behind Sutton in this offense. I don't love it because this offense is horrible, but they've got a nice schedule coming up, so Dulcich could be a guy that you can play. And then Trey McBride would be a guy you could add as well. We saw Zach Ertz go down for the rest of the year here this last week. Trey McBride's a player I liked coming into the league. He hasn't gotten a whole lot of opportunity because rookie tight ends almost never do, but he was a second-round pick for a reason. He's a talented player. I think you could see more targets come his way, especially given how involved Zach Ertz was. So Trey McBride would be a guy that you could add, and I don't want to play him just yet, but I want to see how well he does, and maybe you can play him down the stretch. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.